I grew up with Evan as childhood sweethearts. After we finally got married, we had a daughter. Our life was happy and fulfilling until I received a call from the cemetery. That's when I realized that there had always been a first love hidden in Evan's heart. Every year on her Memorial Day, Evan would stay by her tombstone for a whole day and night. Later, due to an accident, Evan and I went back to the age of 18. This time, he gave up everything and firmly chose his first love. After returning to the garage at home, I unbuckled my seat belt and took a look at Evan, who was drunk and asleep in the back seat. He just seemed incredibly strange to me. If it weren't for the cemetery's temporary notice about the maintenance of infrastructure, and the staff called me to pick up Evan, I wouldn't have known that my husband Evan had always hidden a first love in his heart. Snow. That withdrawn girl with the gloomy face sitting in the corner of the classroom. Both she and Evan were prominent figures in high school. However, Evan was a favored son of heaven sought after by others. Snow was completely the opposite. Her father ran a financial company and cheated a lot of people out of their money. After the incident happened, Snow took a year off from school and then came to our class as a senior. Many parents in the school were victims. Her mother was also involved in ambiguous relationships with several men and had a very bad reputation. Coupled with Snow's withdrawn personality, so many people didn't like her. And some even hated her. I didn't have a very deep impression of her. I just remembered that for a while. The head teacher, on a whim, proposed one-on-one assistance. He asked students with good grades to sit with those with poor grades. So, as the top student in the class, Evan became the desk mate of Snow, who was at the bottom of the class. But it only lasted for a short month before it was complained about by the parents. They thought that doing such flashy things at the most crucial moment would affect the grades of the excellent students. After that, Evan and Snow hardly had any interaction. During the summer vacation after the college entrance examination, Snow died unexpectedly. It was also during that summer vacation that Evan and I were traveling outside and officially established our romantic relationship. I sat in the car and thought about it all night. But I still couldn't understand why Evan would be drunk in such an infatuated manner in front of Snow's tombstone. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Evan groaned and woke up. He rubbed his forehead and asked subconsciously, "Why am I here?" I calmed down my emotions and said coldly, "The cemetery is under maintenance. And I went to pick you up." Evan was stunned. And finally he just said in a low voice, "It's good that you know." I thought that when Evan woke up, he would be flustered, ashamed, and would quickly grab my hand to explain. But I didn't expect him to react like this. My nose stung. And I said, "Do you like her?" Evan shook his head. Seeing this, my voice suddenly rose. "So you don't like her?" A trace of a helpless smile appeared on Evan's lips. "This question is meaningless. Snow has been dead for a long time." Meaningless? I gripped the steering wheel tightly, and my voice suddenly rose with a tremor. "Since it's meaningless, what are you doing now? 10 years ago, you spent a lot of money to buy a cemetery plot in the south of the city for Snow. You said you were going on a business trip, but it turned out that you were keeping vigil for her on her Memorial Day." I shouted with a sob. Evan tafofel. Should I praise you for your infatuation?" Evan quickly got out of the car and ran to my side. He bent down and gently wiped away my tears. "Honey, don't cry." His tone was as gentle as ever. But I couldn't help crying even harder. On the day Snow died, she sent me a message. But I ignored it. I often think that if I had gone to find her that day, she might not have died. I looked up at him and choked. "So you're just atoning for your sins?" Evan lowered his eyes. "Of course." Hearing this, I was like grabbing a life-saving straw and threw myself into his arms. I believed him. Everything was just Snow's wishful thinking. And Evan just felt self-blame and guilt because he didn't respond to her. Evan and I were childhood sweethearts and grew up together. We had decades of friendship. Even if Evan really had some feelings for Snow, how could they compare to our relationship? I repeated this thought in my heart over and over again. "Evan, do you love me?" Evan hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "Stop thinking nonsense." After that, we tacitly didn't mention this matter again. Our way of getting along was just the same as before. Every morning when I woke up, Evan would kiss my forehead. He would occasionally give me surprise gifts and cook for me. Whenever he had time, he would take me and our daughter on trips. He was rich, took care of the family, and was handsome. The nanny, Aunt Wang, was extremely envious and kept saying that if her daughter could find a husband like Evan, that would be great. But I felt a bit stuffy in my heart. Because Evan was too perfect. As if he was wearing a mask. After getting married, he rarely showed his emotions. I used to think he was mature and steady. Until I saw him drunk in front of Snow's tomb. He was so vivid and lively at that time. On our daughter's 6th birthday, Evan drove us to the amusement park. On the way back, our daughter happily ate cotton candy in the back seat. Suddenly, a large vehicle came speeding towards us. I shouted at Evan, "Step on the brake quickly." Evan turned to look at me. His face serious. "The brakes don't work." The next second, a sharp pain hit me. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the age of 18. My classmates were gathered in the corner of the classroom watching the excitement. Snow had knocked over Max's pencil case. Max was the one who hated Snow the most in the class. His parents had invested in Snow's father's company. They not only lost all their savings but also mortgaged a house. When they learned that Snow's father had run away with all the money, Max's grandmother was so angry that she fainted and passed away a few days later. "Snow, are you blind?" The pencil case fell to the ground, and the things inside scattered everywhere. Snow stood there, with her head lowered and didn't say a word. Max was even angrier when he saw this. "Are you dumb? Can't you even say sorry? Are you really your father's child?" He was quite eloquent. "Why haven't you learned anything from him?" I don't know who in the crowd watching the excitement said. "Her mother ran away with a man. Maybe she's really a bastard." Snow suddenly raised her head. Her eyes filled with tears. And her expression stubborn. "You're all bullying me too much." Max sneered. "Are we wrong? Your father is a liar. Your mother is a bitch. And you're no good either." The next second, Evan swung his fist and gave Max a hard punch. Max's head tilted to one side, and a trace of blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. The surrounding classmates were all stunned. Evan and Max had a good relationship. No matter what, he wouldn't have hit so hard. Moreover, everyone knew Max's personality. He didn't have any bad intentions. Normally, hadn't self-laid such. He would just turn a blind eye to Snow. If Snow hadn't knocked over Max's pencil case this time, Max wouldn't have taken the initiative to cause trouble. Evan grabbed Snow's wrist, gave Snow a reassuring look, and pulled her behind him. I was sure that Evan had also been reborn. Because in the previous life, Evan would pick up the pencil case before the situation got more serious, pat Max on the shoulder, and say, "Forget it. Don't argue with a girl." He wouldn't have taken action directly with strong personal emotions. Max was stunned by the punch. When he came to his senses, he said in disbelief, "Evan, are you crazy? You actually hit me for this woman?" Evan was looking down at Snow at this time, his eyes full of worry. Hearing Max's words, he turned his head and said, "Anyway, heading fulfilled my obsession. Snow is our classmate. What you said is too vicious." Max was so angry that he laughed. "Classmate? Does she deserve it? Her father has caused so many people to lose their families and homes. If she really cared about the feelings of her classmates, she should have told us immediately where her father is." Snow bit her lower lip, and tears rolled down from the corners of her eyes. "But I really don't know where he is." Max sneered. "Then go and find him. How can you still have the nerve to be here in class? Children should pay for their parents' debts. Do you understand?" Seeing this, Evan said sternly, "Max, don't stand there and talk without understanding the situation. Snow is already very miserable. If she was in cahoots with her father, she would have run away with him long ago. Why would she stay here and listen to your sarcasm? Snow is also a victim. Both her parents have run away. And she still has to take care of her young brother." Evan became more and more passionate as he spoke, as if he was going to fight for justice for Snow. "It's already very difficult for her just to stay alive. It's bad enough that you don't help her. But you all come to bully her. If she could choose, She wouldn't want to be born into such a family either. Moreover, if it weren't for your parents' greed. Before Evan could finish, I quickly stepped forward and interrupted. That's enough, Evan. If he continued, it would ruin his friendship with Max. In the previous life, Max and Evan had always had a good relationship. When we got married, Max was the best man. When Evan saw me, he immediately let go of Snow's wrist. I caught a glimpse of a trace of disappointment flashing in Snow's eyes. But she quickly hid it. Thank you, classmate Evan. Please don't quarrel with classmate Max because of me. She smiled self-deprecating lie. I'm not worth it. After saying that, she walked up to Max and bowed deeply. I'm sorry, classmate Max. It's all my fault. The bell for class rang, and the classmates all returned to their seats. My desk mate nudged me with her elbow and said with a gossipy expression, "What's wrong with your Evan?" I turned to look at Evan. He was lowering his head and explaining a problem to Snow. Snow's ears turned red. Unlike her usual cold appearance, she stared straight at Evan's profile. It was obvious that she wasn't listening carefully. There were many girls who liked Evan, but he only liked me. At least, I used to be firmly convinced of this. I turned my head back, raised the corners of my mouth, and pretended not to care. He just feels sorry for Snow. After all, Snow is really miserable. After school, Snow was the first to rush out of the classroom. Someone behind complained. Why did Snow run away again? Damn it. I have to do the cleaning alone again. I'll do the cleaning for her in the future. As soon as the words were spoken, the noisy classroom suddenly became quiet. The pen stopped writing, and many curious gazes fell on me. Perhaps Evan also realized this. He added aloud, "It's normal for classmates to help each other. Isn't it? Classmates know has to work to earn money and take care of her younger brother." The classmate who was originally on duty with Snow sneered. Oh, Evan. Then why don't you help me? My mother is in the hospital, and I have to go and bring her food every day after school. The surrounding classmates all started to make a commotion. Evan felt embarrassed and fell silent. In the stalemate, I put down my pen, stood up, and smiled at that classmate. Then I'll help you. In the end, Evan and I stayed behind to do the cleaning. Evan pinched my face. Frost. Thank you. I looked at his back as he went to get the mop. I opened my mouth. But in the end, I didn't tell him that I had been reborn. Since God has given us a chance to live our lives again, this time I also hope that Evan can pull out the thorn in his heart and be with me without any distractions. After finishing the cleaning, Evan and I left the school gate while chatting. Suddenly, his gaze shifted away from me. I followed his line of sight. It was Snow. She was handing out flyers on the street. A gust of wind blew, and somehow, the flyers in her hand also fell to the ground. The flyers instantly fluttered and scattered. Seeing the scene, the owner of the small store put her hands on her hips and started cursing loudly. Snow quickly squatted down to pick up the flyers, looking rather embarrassed. Seeing this, Evan stepped forward and squatted down to help her pick them up. I followed behind and helped as well. Snow pursed her lips, took the flyers that Evan handed her with both hands, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. Thank you, Evan. I quickly placed the flyers in front of her. Snow was taken aback for a moment and casually took them. Thank you too, classmate Frost. Her tone was full of perfunctory and casualness. Then she stared at Evan intently. You've helped me many times. Can I treat you to a meal? Just as Evan was about to nod, I nudged him with my elbow. You forgot. My mom is still waiting for us to have dinner. During the 3 years of high school, Evan basically had dinner at my house. Evan's parents were busy with their business and didn't have time to take care of him. Evan was stunned for a moment, and then he told Snow that they could do it next time. I followed Evan and continued walking home. Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks and turned back to look at Snow. She was glaring at me with a gloomy face, and the flyers in her hand were clenched into a ball. A few days later, the results of the monthly exam came out. As expected, Evan was first in the grade again. I ranked 10th in the whole school. This grade was already a ranking that I had worked very hard to maintain. Evan has a good mind. and studying is very easy for him. I'm not as smart as him. So I can only study harder and more diligently. So I signed up for a lot of tutoring classes. Evan was even jealous because of this, thinking that the time we spent together had decreased. After the self-study class, I handed in the collected math test papers to the teacher's office. Snow was also there. Snow, what's going on? Why can't your grades improve? Snow lowered her head and said with a sobbing voice, I'm sorry, teacher's son. I've let you down. I know that you have to study and work part-time to take care of your younger brother. So it's inevitable that you don't have enough energy. Didn't I already apply for a student grant for you? This year, you can focus on your studies. Teacher, I have no choice. I need to make money. The head teacher sighed. Then why don't you work part-time in the school library? The hourly wage is not low. And the most important thing is that there are few people and it's relaxing. You can definitely read and study there. Snow bit her lip. Teacher son, you've already helped me a lot. I don't want to put you in a difficult position. There are still many students who are in more difficult situations than me. It's better to give the opportunity to them. After Snow came out, I called out to her. My aunt runs a dessert shop, and she's hiring part-time cashiers in her store. I can help you. Before I could finish speaking, Snow interrupted me. You want to introduce a job to me? Hearing the disdain in Snow's tone, I was taken aback for a moment. And then I nodded. Snow sneered, no need. Frost, I don't need your charity. After saying that, she raised her chin slightly. When she passed by me, she deliberately bumped into my shoulder. I originally had no feelings for Snow, but now I completely agree with Max's opinion of her. This person is really annoying. When I returned to the classroom, I saw that Snow had changed from her arrogant appearance just now. Her eyes were slightly red as she wrote furiously. And Evan next to her was whispering words of comfort to her. Max sneered, pretending. She didn't do well in the exam before either. Why does she look so pitiful when she's sitting next to Evan? Someone laughed and agreed. Who makes her good-looking? Don't you boys fall for this kind of thing? Max quickly retorted. It depends on the situation. For someone with low moral character, even if they are really beautiful, I won't like them. Hearing this, Snow stopped writing, and big teardrops fell on the test paper. Seeing this, Evan frowned. That's enough. Max. The police will deal with the things in your family. Stop being sarcastic all the time and don't always take your anger out on innocent people. Max snorted. Evan, why are you standing up for Snow like this? Could it be that you've fallen for her? As soon as these words were spoken, the originally noisy classroom instantly fell silent. Everyone looked at Evan. Evan's gaze landed on me. And his Adam's apple moved. Just because a guy helps a girl doesn't mean he likes her. Max, don't be so narrow-minded. The heart that I had been holding in my throat relaxed a little. Counting my previous life, Evan and I have known each other for half a lifetime. We've been together since kindergarten. At that time, the teacher asked Evan what he wanted to do when he grew up. Evan clenched his chubby fists and said firmly, I want to marry Frost when I grow up. In Evan's plan, I was in every page. And I never thought that I would live a life without Evan. The relationship between Evan and me was like a solid fortress. So I gave him 100 trust. It was Sunday, and I didn't go to the tutoring class. I sent a message asking Evan what he was doing. And he said that there was a newly opened fried chicken store at the door. And he was buying fried chicken. I hurried over. Before I reached the store, I saw Evan coming out after buying the food. I stood on tiptoe and waved at him. But he didn't see me. I was about to call out to him. At this moment, the person wearing a bear mascot costume fell in front of him. The bulky headgear tilted to one side, revealing a sweaty face. It was Snow. Her bangs were stuck to her forehead, and her face was slightly red. There's no denying that she really has a very pretty face. I watched as Evan helped her up, his eyes full of concern. My eyes suddenly widened. And I suddenly thought of those details that I had ignored in my previous life. The places where Snow worked part-time seemed to be all around Evan. No wonder she refused the easy part-time job in the library that teacher's son found for her. If she went there, how could she meet Evan? She always appeared in Evan's sight in a vulnerable but self-reliant image. In my previous life, I didn't care about Snow at all. But I didn't expect that she had already appeared frequently in Evan's life. From Evan's perspective, Snow had a miserable background. But she was self-reliant, weak, and kind. She never actively asked for anything. And she just looked at him with love in her eyes. As if Evan was a ray of light in her life. Perhaps at the beginning, Evan didn't like her. But at least she was special. When this ignorant feeling just started to sprout, that person died. So that person became the first love that was forever engraved in his heart. I saw Evan take out the handkerchief in his pocket and carefully wipe the sweat off her forehead. When we were in kindergarten, every time I washed my hands, I was too lazy to dry them. Later, Evan would carry a handkerchief with him and help me dry my hands. Over time, carrying a handkerchief became his habit. That handkerchief was clearly exclusive to me. Thinking of this, I held back the soreness in my heart and walked forward step by step. Out of the corner of her eye, Snow caught a glimpse of me. And a trace of pride flashed in her eyes. She stood on tiptoe, hooked her arms around Evan's neck, and kissed him, just as they were about to kiss. I shouted, "Evan!" Hearing my voice. A trace of panic flashed across Evan's face. And then he pushed Snow away. Snow's eyes instantly turned red. And she softly said sorry. She turned around and walked away quickly. "Evan, you've fallen for Snow." This time, my tone was affirmative. Evan looked ashamed. "Frost, I haven't. Listen to my explanation." "Then why didn't you push her away?" "I just feel sorry for her?" I interrupted him with a sneer. "Evan, when did you start having feelings for her? Don't tell me it was after she died." Hearing this, the shame on Evan's face disappeared instantly. He looked at me with a strange gaze. "You've been reborn too?" He seemed to heave a sigh of relief. "I originally thought you hadn't been reborn. So I didn't want to hurt you. But since you've been reborn too, I can only say sorry." I said in disbelief, "Sorry?" In my previous life, Snow told me that my feelings for you weren't love. It was just a kind of dependence and habit. I cared about my parents' thoughts and your thoughts. But I never cared about my own thoughts. I had already fallen for Snow without realizing it. Evan smiled self-deprecating lie. No. I should have realized it at that time. But for you and for my parents, I decided to stay away from Snow before I got too deep. On her birthday, she wanted me to accompany her to Central Park to watch the fireworks. But I refused. Later, she got drunk and accidentally fell into the moat. After Snow died, I missed her all the time. Turns out that loving someone can be so unforgettable. The relationship between you and me is too plain. I'm a good son in my parents' eyes. A good son-in-law in your parents' eyes. A good husband to you. And a good father to Anan. But I'm not myself at all. Only Snow understands me. So this time, after being reborn, I made up my mind to protect her well. Big. Hot tears fell down one after another. Evan instinctively reached out his hand, but it stopped in my drawer. "Frost, I'm really sorry." After saying that, he resolutely turned away and chased after Snow in the direction she had left. Since knowing that I was reborn, Evan no longer had any scruples. After the one-on-one assistance ended, Evan directly found the head teacher and asked to continue sitting next to Snow. No one in the class was willing to be Snow's desk mate, and since Evan was excellent in both character and academics, the head teacher directly agreed. Evan bought a bicycle and, regardless of other people's gazes, picked up and dropped off Snow to and from school. Originally, having facile obsession. After school, Evan would occasionally play basketball with his friends. But now, all his spare time was spent with Snow. Passing by the milk tea shop at the school gate, I saw Snow standing behind the cashier counter. From time to time, she would look at Evan, her eyes full of love. On my birthday, Evan's parents specially took a day off to celebrate my birthday with me. At the dinner table, my mom smiled and said, "Time really flies. In the blink of an eye, our Frost has grown into a big girl." Evan's mom chimed in another blink of an eye. "Your girl will become our Evan's wife." Evan's dad laughed heartily, This brat used to shout every day when he was a kid that he wanted to marry Frost. I don't know who he takes after. Whenever we got together, the elders would always joke about the relationship between Evan and me. I used to just feel sweet and shy. But now it just sounds harsh to my ears. Evan finished the orange juice in one gulp and slammed the glass on the table with a bang. Don't make such jokes in the future. I only regard Frost as my sister and have no other thoughts. As soon as these words were spoken, the originally lively atmosphere instantly turned cold. Evan, what are you talking about? My dad quickly tried to smooth things over, saying, the kids have all grown up. We really can't make such thoughtless jokes anymore. What kind of joke? You brat are being foolish. I'll tell you today that Frost is the only daughter-in-law I've recognized. Evan frowned and looked down at his phone. Anyway, it's impossible for me and Frost. After saying that, he pulled the chair back and left the private room without looking back. The others were left looking at each other in surprise. I hesitated for a moment but still chased after him. When I got to the entrance of the hotel, I saw Evan walking towards the alley on the left. I followed him and saw Snow sitting on the courtyard wall, wearing a white camisole dress. She swung her to fair and long legs. Under the dim stardale twilight, it was as if a layer of light was cast on her skin. Evan stood below. Looking up, I couldn't make out his facial features and expression clearly. I just felt that this scene was very much like a goddess and her devout believer. Snow slightly raised her eyes, and her gaze accidentally fell on me. The corners of her lips lifted, and she smiled brightly and charmingly. She jumped down from the high wall. She was as light in posture as a white butterfly. Evan opened his hands and rushed forward, clamping Snow's slender waist with one hand. Snow giggled and wrapped her arms around his neck. This time, no one disturbed their kiss. After that, Evan never came to my house for a meal again. Even for any gatherings where I was present, he would find excuses to decline and not attend. There were 100 days left until the college entrance examination. The atmosphere in the class became tense. Even during the breaks, there was no more noise, and everyone was buried in their studies. Except for Evan and Snow. Snow often made excuses that she didn't feel well and skipped classes with Evan to go out and play. Snow said she had never seen the sea, and Evan immediately bought plane tickets. As a result, they were absent from school for a whole day on Monday. Not only that, but Evan also got into a fight with the gangsters from the vocational school next door for Snow, and he had bruises on his face. For this reason, the head teacher talked to them several times. But they only admitted their mistakes and didn't correct them. The teacher went to Evan's parents, but they were busy with their business. Moreover, Evan had always been a worry-free child for them since he was a child. So they didn't pay much attention. Until the results of the mock exam came out. Evan's grade dropped to outside the top 100 in the whole school. Only then did his parents start to get worried. Evan's mother came to me and asked me to help persuade him. I was originally reluctant because I knew that Evan had been avoiding me these days. Without having to think, I knew it was Snow's doing. But after all, I had such a long-standing friendship with him, and I really couldn't bear to see him degenerate like this. I asked Evan out. What on earth have you been doing these days? Are you crazy? Snow has had such a tough life. So I want to do my best to make her happy. Then why not after the college entrance examination? Youth is short. Snow doesn't want our memories together in the future to be all about doing endless exercises in the dull and boring classroom. Have you ever considered your own future? Your prospects? A sarcastic smile appeared on the corner of Evan's mouth. It's all about prospects again. Frost. Do you know how oppressive I felt when I was with you? You are really too utilitarian. At the age of 17 or 18, the best years of our lives, I wanted to have a sweet relationship with you. But what about you? You always talked about the target school, the major, and the employment prospects. What's the point of getting into a good university, finding a good job, and living a life that's predictable from the start? My family isn't short of money. Why should I make myself so tired? Frost, I'm sorry for you in the past. We have no relationship at all now. And please don't interfere in my affairs. After saying that, he turned around and left in a huff. I looked at his back. feeling full of bitterness in my heart. In my heart, Evan had always been a guiding light that I chased after in my life. Since we were young, Evan had always been the child of other people's families that parents talked about. My dad and his dad used to be colleagues. Later, his dad resolutely quit his job to start a business. And the business grew bigger and bigger. Gradually, I found that the gap between our two families was getting wider and wider. More and more people were pursuing Evan. When they knew that Evan had a childhood sweetheart like me, his pursuers all came to size me up. In order to be worthy of Evan, I worked incredibly hard. But I never expected that Evan only felt unhappy when he was with me like this. Frost. Actually, I think you're quite pitiful. I didn't know when Snow had stood behind me. I turned around and looked at her. Look at me. I don't have to do anything. And Evan will come to me without hesitation. He feels sorry for me. He doesn't want me to take part-time jobs. And he doesn't want me to suffer in my studies. If I can't get into a university, he will take me abroad. I heard that you've been in the same class as him since kindergarten. But I haven't seen him feeling sorry for you either. I said inferiorly, fulfilledly. How do you know that the words he said to you, he hasn't said to me? Snow's proud smile froze on her face. Have you ever heard a saying? Relying on the mountain will collapse. Relying on people will leave. By the way, you have a ready example right beside you. The corners of my lips lifted. Your father who abandoned his wife and children. Snow was instantly enraged. Frost, what right do you have to preach to me from a high horse? You just happen to be born into a good family. If you were in a family like mine, do you think you could still be so arrogant? As she was speaking, she suddenly laughed. But it doesn't matter. Now, the most precious thing to you has been snatched away by me. Evan is just being impulsive now. After he discovers your true colors, do you think he will still be with you? What Evan loves is just the perfect first love that he created in his mind after Snow died in the previous life. Snow sneered. You're still being stubborn. A strange smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Do you think Evan will believe you or me? Before I could figure out what she meant, I saw her suddenly grab my hand and put it on her chest. And then she fell onto the grass behind. Frost. What are you doing? Evan's voice came from behind. I never expected that such a cliché plot that only appears in TV dramas would happen to me. He trotted over and helped Snow up. She fell by herself. It has nothing to do with me. Snow groaned and opened her left palm. There was a small cut on it made by a small stone, and a little bright red blood was oozing out. Evan felt extremely sorry for her. Frost. You're still trying to defend yourself. I clearly saw that you pushed her. I don't like you anymore. If you're not happy about it, you can hit me or scold me. But don't hurt Snow. I took a deep breath. Evan, after all these years of our relationship, don't you know what kind of person I am? I'll just say one thing. You can choose not to be with me. But you can't be with her either. Being with her will only ruin you. Enough. Frost. I've said that you don't need to interfere in my affairs. Since Evan had said that, I wasn't going to be so pathetic as to keep persuading him. Soon, me too. The college entrance examination ended. And the results came out. I scored 20 points higher than in the previous life. In the previous life, in order to go to the same university as Evan, I, who scored just past the line, chose a major that I didn't like. This time, I was finally able to choose the major I liked. However, Evan deliberately did poorly in the exam for Snow. The two of them didn't even reach the ordinary undergraduate admission line. Evan's parents were extremely angry. Evan decided to take Snow to study abroad. But Snow suddenly couldn't bear to leave her younger brother. So the two of them planned to spend money to go to a private college in the local area. Because of the troubles caused by Evan, his parents didn't attend my entrance ceremony banquet. They just sent a large red envelope through someone. As the date of Snow's death in the previous life was getting closer and closer, I always had nightmares. Sometimes I dreamed that Snow jumped into the river. And sometimes I dreamed that Evan was beside a pale corpse. I knew that I still cared about Evan. With so many years of our relationship, I simply couldn't let it go. So on the day when Snow had the accident in the previous life, I put on a baseball cap and went out early in the morning to follow Snow. To my surprise, Snow was even more tightly wrapped up than me. She avoided Evan, who was waiting for her, and ran in another direction. She was still carrying a lunchbox in her hand. I followed her. After passing through one alley after another, we arrived at an abandoned and residential area. I hid in the dark and observed quietly. Suddenly, someone patted me on the back. I was so scared that I turned around. Max? Frost. I've been following you all the way. What are you sneaking around for? I quickly shushed him. I pointed inside. Snow went in. When Max heard it was Snow, he perked up. Then let's go in. Just as he finished speaking, a man came out and stretched. Snow behind quickly pulled him back in. Damn it. It's that bastard. Snow's father. Snow's father? Just Snow's father. After saying that, Max followed in. I quickly caught up. I've told you. Don't go out. Damn it. I'm almost moldy. Can't I just go out and get some sun? Just endure it. Tonight, Dad will take you to meet an uncle. I'm not going. How dare you disobey me? Don't think I don't know what you want to do. I will never do that. If you force me, I'll call the police and let them arrest you. You little brat. How dare you threaten me? Through the gap in the window, I saw Snow's father raise his hand to slap her. Stop it. I don't know when. Evan came over. Evan? How did you get here? Sorry. I put a locator in the keychain I gave you. Snow. Don't blame me. I was just too worried about you. When Snow's father saw an outsider coming, he was furious. You're just like your mother. A slut. Evan stood in front of Snow. I advise you to turn yourself in quickly. Snow's father was already angry, and Evan's words were like adding fuel to the fire. When I saw Snow's father take out a knife, Max stood up and rushed in, shouting loudly, Evan, be careful. Snow's father stabbed at Evan, who was protecting Snow, with a ferocious expression. Snow let out a scream and pushed Evan in front of her father with a surprised look in Evan's eyes. At the critical moment, Max pounced forward and hugged Snow's father's waist tightly. I took the opportunity to grab his wrist, trying to snatch the knife away. During the struggle, I was cut on the arm by the knife, and blood was gushing out. When Evan saw this, he said anxiously, Frost. He picked up a chair beside him and smashed it hard on Snow's father's head. Snow had already run far away and shouted anxiously in the distance, Evan. You're crazy. That's my father. Snow's father fell to the ground, covering his bleeding forehead, and shouted, You brats. I'll fight you to the death. Fortunately, at this moment, the police arrived. As soon as I found Snow's father, I called the police immediately. Evan stepped forward to support me and pressed my arm with a worried expression. Blood stained his white shirt. He was so anxious that he almost cried. After getting my wounds bandaged in the hospital, I went to the police station to make a statement. Snow's father favored sons over daughters. When he found out that Snow's younger brother wasn't his biological child, he abandoned his wife and children and went abroad to live a carefree life. He lost all his money gambling abroad and owed a huge debt, so he illegally crossed the border back to the country to find Snow. Snow clearly knew where her father was, but she couldn't bear to report him. So she hid her father in an abandoned and residential area. Snow's father privately made an arrangement with the boss and asked Snow to accompany him. In the previous life, Snow fell into the river near a nightclub. It was estimated that she was forced to drink alcohol, then ran out desperately and accidentally fell in. In this life, before Snow's father had the chance to deceive Snow into going to the nightclub, we discovered his plan. Snow was in tears at the police station. Max rolled his eyes and said, I've always said she's hypocritical. She talked so nicely at that time, saying that she would immediately inform the police as soon as she had news of her father. But she actually hid her father instead. Hearing this, Snow cried even louder and broke down emotionally, saying, It's easy for you to talk. He's my biological father. I'm not a cold-blooded person. How could I bear to do that? After saying that, she cried and tried to reach out to grab Evan's arm. Evan, I'm sorry. Evan took a step back and said coldly, "Don't say sorry to me. You should say sorry to Max. Frost. And those victims." Max sneered and said, "Well, you're sober now." Evan looked at me and said, "Frost. I'm sorry. I was blinded by my foolishness. When that knife was stabbed towards you, my mind went blank. I couldn't imagine a life without seeing you in the future. At that moment, there was only one thought in my mind, which was to die with you. At that very moment, I realized that I actually love you." Snow said with red eyes. "Evan, don't think that it's love just because Frost saved you. The person you love is clearly me." Evan looked at Snow and said sternly, "Shut up. You didn't hesitate at all when you pushed me towards your father's knife." Snow was stunned for a moment by the shout. And then she wailed and argued, "I didn't. I wasn't. I was just too scared. I didn't want to stay at the police station to watch them argue." After making the statement, my mother came to pick me up. Evan started pestering me. He stood guard outside my door every day. "I'm not going to forgive you that easily." When Evan saw that I finally talked to him, his eyes curved into crescents and he said, "I know I was really a jerk. As long as you talk to me, that's enough. I'm going to repeat my senior year of high school. I'll keep chasing you then." "Frost." I snorted and closed the door. But the corners of my mouth couldn't help but turn up. "My mother took me to you on Temple. I've been weakened often ill since I was a child. According to the customs of our hometown, my mother made me recognize a big tree in the temple as my adoptive mother. Since I survived this great disaster, my mother took me to the temple to fulfill our vow. While my mother was inside worshipping Buddha, I went out and strolled around the back mountain. On the way, I met a monk with a round face. He smiled kindly at me. "Benefactor Frost." I was a bit puzzled and asked, "Have we met before?" The round-faced monk nodded and his eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "Of course. Your daughter is very cute. She even gave me a piece of bread." I looked at him in disbelief and asked, "Are you also someone who has been reborn?" The monk smiled and said, "Benefactor Evan has a very deep obsession. But how can a person who is already turned into white bones come back to life?" At that time, I told him that there was a way to reverse time. However, no one has ever tried it. After thinking for a long time, he decided to take a gamble. To perform this method, one has to use one's own life and the lives of one's blood relatives as sacrifices. Now it seems that Benefactor Evan won the bet. Looking at the monk's receding back, I could hardly stand steadily. In the previous life, Evan was absent-minded all the time when we were at the amusement park. On the way back, he took the road where there were the most traffic accidents. And our car had just been maintained not long ago. How could the brakes fail? It turned out that it was all on purpose by Evan. For Snow's sake, he didn't hesitate to sacrifice the lives of me and our daughter Anun. I came to the incense hall. This is a place specially for enshrining memorial tablets. I asked the young monk to carve an AN's date of birth and other relevant information on the tablet. My mother found me and looked at the memorial tablet I enshrined curiously. "Evan? Who is this? Why is the date of birth written as 5 years later? Is there a mistake? This is your most beloved granddaughter. But you won't be able to see her in this life." My mother looked at me in horror. "Frost, are you okay?" I shook my head. I just felt that I couldn't breathe. I leaned forward and fell into darkness. After waking up, I blocked all of Evan's contact information. I threw all the things related to Evan in my room into the trash bin. "Your uncle and Aunt Evan invited you to have dinner at their house before. Are you still going?" "No. I don't want to see any member of Evan's family ever again." My mother sighed. "Mom knows you like Evan. Have you really made up your mind this time?" "Yes. I'd rather be single for the rest of my life than have any connection with Evan." Evan, with red eyes, blocked the door of my house. "Frost. What's wrong? Didn't you promise to come to my house for dinner?" I looked up and stared at him coldly. Saying, "Evan, did the brakes really fail?" Evan's face instantly turned pale. He tried to pretend to be calm and said, "Yes. You're lying." I slapped him hard in the face and said, "You finally got this chance to be reborn. Why don't you cherish it and be with the Snow you love so much?" When I was about to close the door, Evan blocked the door frame and said, "I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Everything is still in time. As long as we get married and prepare for pregnancy like in the previous life, and Anne will come back again. Won't she?" I said coldly. "Evan, Heathing. There's no possibility between us anymore. Now I just think you're disgusting. Get out. I don't want to see you anymore." Evan didn't give up. He went to the trash bin in the community and picked up the things I threw away. After cleaning them, he put them outside my door. I simply smashed and threw them away. And Evan started sending me gifts again. The dolls I liked. The desserts I loved to eat. And the roses I liked. Looking at the bright red roses, I remembered the lilies in front of the tombstone in the previous life. I just felt extremely uncomfortable in my heart. To have some peace, I simply made an appointment with my friends to go on a trip. When the school started, Evan held a bouquet of roses and blocked the school date. His eyes were full of exhaustion, and he looked several years older. According to my parents, Snow had been pestering Evan. She even tried to commit suicide by slitting her wrists and jumping off a building. It became known to everyone. Evan's parents originally wanted to persuade us to get back together. But Snow stuck to Evan like a piece of chewing gum. So Evan's parents didn't have the face to mention it again. "Frost. I miss you." After saying that, he stuffed a large bunch of roses into my arms. Once, when Evan gave me just one rose, I was overjoyed. Now, the strong fragrance of the roses just makes me feel nauseous. I sneered and threw the bouquet of roses into the trash bin. Evan shouted loudly behind me, "It doesn't matter. Frost. Wait for me. I will definitely be admitted to this university." However, he broke his promise again. Snow changed Evan's college entrance examination volunteer. She applied for an ordinary local university for him. Evan was extremely angry. But it was his own fault. Because Evan showed mercy again and again, Snow became more and more insatiable. Snow, who was deeply trapped in the quagmire, would only hold Evan back and make him sink with her. I heard that not long after that, Snow got pregnant. Evan didn't admit it, saying that he had always taken precautions and Snow definitely couldn't get pregnant. So that child definitely wasn't his. Evan asked Snow to have an abortion. But Snow insisted on giving birth and even hid. I was completely disheartened by Evan. When I heard these things, I just thought it was ridiculous. Later, I heard that Snow gave birth to a son. She was crying and insisting on doing a paternity test. After confirming that the child was Evan's, Evan broke down. After all, it was his own flesh and blood. Evan's parents had no choice but to accept it. Especially Evan's father, who was actually a very traditional person, directly forced the two of them to get married. After marriage, Snow revealed her true nature. She only knew how to spend money and enjoy herself, and she even asked Evan's family to help raise her younger brother together. The life of Evan's family was in chaos. My parents didn't want me to see these annoying people, so every holiday, they would directly come to stay with me. The next time I saw Evan was 5 years later. He was no longer as high-spirited as before. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up, but the next second, Snow, wearing high heels, came running over aggressively, holding the hand of the child. Evan took out a pack of cigarettes with a frowning face. The cigarette pack was already crushed. He threw it into the trash bin, took out a new pack, and started smoking. Evan's son coughed when he smelled the cigarette smoke. Snow put her hands on her hips and started cursing indirectly. I chuckled and turned away.